webinar, Smart Mobility Data, the Essential Guide to U.S. Retail Location Selection. We're excited you could join us. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today, we are going to deep dive on why smart mobility data is an increasingly necessary tool in retailers' arsenals, and how retailers can put smart mobility data to use for the benefit of their U.S. retail locations. We are thrilled to be joined by our speakers, Joe Birch, AVP of Commercial Sales with Wejo, and Jim Eaton, VP of Solutions Consulting with Wejo. Before we get started, let's go through some quick tips to make sure your webinar experience is the best it can be. At the bottom of your screen are resizable and movable application widgets. Feel free to move them around to make the most of your desktop space. The slides will advance automatically during the presentation. If you need to enlarge them, simply click on the Enlarge Slides button in the top right corner of the presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click the Help widget in the bottom left corner at any time. As the presentation gets underway, you may submit questions using the Q&A widget. We will answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. If a more informative answer is needed, or if we run out of time before we answer your question, we will follow up via email. After today's presentation, you'll receive a link with on-demand access to the webinar, so you can watch it again at any time, as well as share the content with colleagues. Now, before diving into today's session, I'd like to ask each of our speakers to provide a quick introduction of themselves and their work. So Jim and Joe, could you tell our audience a little about your role and experience? Jim?
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to talk to you all today. So as I was introduced, Jim Eaton, VP of Solutions Consulting here at Wejo. I've been part of Wejo now for the last 4 years, supporting in the ideation of how our connected vehicle data can be applied to many markets, including that of retail. My background actually is in retail. I work for B2C, B2B consumer electronics, working with store groups in terms of how we can attract more custom. My work at Wejo continues to support, or should I say, the work from my team in addition, is how our data can be provided to support in retail use cases, both from the data itself and derivatives of through insight reports, etc.
Excellent. And Joe?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Birch, and I am Assistant Vice President of Commercial Sales here at Wejo. I've been here for 7 years, and I specialize in retail, real estate, and advertising marketplaces. I'm really pleased to be here today.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's get right to it. So to kick us off, I just want to point out how timely our webinar is. According to Deloitte research, only 1/3 of retail executives are very confident about maintaining or improving profit margins in what's expected to be a turbulent 2023, which means the more data you have, the better you can prepare for the year ahead. So insights into how to drive up competitive advantages using smart mobility data may be especially valuable right now. Our speakers will be providing those insights today, but before we get too deep into the advantages of it, Joe, what is smart mobility data?
So Wejo Smart Mobility Data is essentially connected vehicle data. It comes directly from connected cars and electronic vehicles. The data is collected from sensors within the vehicle, and it's then processed to allow us to understand driver behavior. The data can be really valuable to retailers, as many of their customers will be drivers, and the data can provide them with insights on roads, parking, and driver journeys.
Excellent, thank you. And Joe, why is it important for retailers to use smart mobility data to help them make site selection decisions and inform their strategies at the store level?
So whilst we know that online sales are growing, Forrester have predicted that 72% of retail transactions will still take place in stores in 2024. So with stores remaining essential to retailers' growth strategies, they need to be able to analyze traffic flow around a potential location. This will help them to decide whether to invest in real estate in a particular place, and it means they can ensure the best return on their investments. You can avoid wasted expenses in terms of planning and dead stock, and also use the insights from Wejo data to understand if customers are visiting competitors, and also to understand the impact of poor performing stores to the overall brand. It's really important for retailers to understand consumer behavior so that they can choose the right locations for their stores. But a lot of the traditional data sources they use are lacking in accuracy. So, for example, traffic counts from DOTs can be sometimes 2 or 3 years old. And when you think about the effect the pandemic had on mobility, age data probably doesn't reflect the current driving habits that are happening out on the road. In comparison, though, smart mobility data is very current and is available in near real time. So retailers can get insights into behaviour that DOT traffic counts and local expertise just can't match.
Yeah, that's right. And then just to expand on that then, so it's that relevancy and that, you see that more current data that allows for a greater insight for our retail partners of a particular ad campaign or promotional campaign, etc. That's given them a better understanding of a site's potential when they look at that through a current site or acquiring a new location. So thinking further around the operations for a retailer, what does average traffic look like in my area for my logistics? How long would it take for a local labour pool to get to my location? And it's not all about just the new locations, as I mentioned there as well. It might also be for evaluating existing locations to make improvements, seeing factors around the traffic and parking that can be improved. And some of that legacy data that Joe mentioned there can't be as should we say, as real time. Particularly the pandemic caught a lot of our customers out, where the projections that they were receiving no longer matched anywhere near what they would expect based on a seismic change in behavior of drivers.
Excellent, thank you. And Jim, when it comes to evaluating existing locations, what are some questions retailers can answer using smart mobility data? Yeah,
so Wejo in particular is adding more and more connected vehicle and electric vehicles to our platform that we can analyze. Around 13 plus million vehicles at present, around 77 million journeys per day. Our mobility data is continuing to rise as we onboard more and more vehicles into our platform. Essentially, that enables retailers to access insights into patterns and trends and answer questions such as how far people are willing to travel to come to one of their locations, what would have to be offered to attract customers to come to that location from a competitor. Trends, I've mentioned this a little bit earlier on in terms of the trends, how does a promotion affect people coming to a certain location, as well as seasonality over a period of time. The key one really is demographic information. So what can I infer about my customers based on certain characteristics around what kind of vehicle it is? Also, how long people stay at a store and where do they go afterwards? So that kind of gap analysis information, essentially.
Interesting. And you mentioned customer demographics. So Joe, how does smart mobility data help retailers with understanding those?
So connected vehicle data can provide key information about the type of vehicle being driven, which allows the users of the data to infer that demographic information that Jim mentioned. This insight can indicate the affluence and the behaviour of their customers. So, for example, are they travelling at school pick-up or drop-up times? You can infer from the type of vehicle and the time of day that they're making their journeys, whether they're a stay-at-home parent or if they're somebody who's perhaps driving into the city to go to work.
Yeah, that's right. I guess the census blocks around the US also tell us a lot about where different demographics shop. So if we look at it in terms of the pattern of where people travel from and to at that census block level, in addition to what vehicle type it is, we can find out more and more about what that shopper behavior or interest may well be. Some interesting element here then, so such as should we say, charge point location, which is also a key consideration for retailers. US infrastructure grants and bad administration initiatives mean that US has continued to wake up more and more around charge point placement. The same is true for big box retailers. How and when do I invest in the infrastructure, and which sites in my portfolio should I invest in first to remain competitive? That demographic information that Wejo also provides by breakdown of vehicle, by vehicle type, etc., can give further inferment of that. Whereas an area more or less likely to adopt and need, shall we say, further charging, and where your store can continue to be attractive based on that.
Excellent information. I do want to dig into out-positioning the competition. Joe, how does smart mobility data help retailers do that?
Well, as we've mentioned, users of mobility data can understand where their customers are coming from and where they're going to. So they can look at how far a customer is willing to travel to get to one of their stores. They can also see how this differs by day of the week and around key events like Black Friday, for example. But the data can also be used to learn if retail customers are passing a particular store to go to a competitor or visiting a competitor after they've been to that store. Retailers can use the data to understand dwell times at a given location versus competitors and infer insights as to how customers are behaving and to understand missed opportunities. It comes down to having the ability to review your current locations and make improvements, being able to see traffic patterns and journey trends of your competitors' stores, and overall just using more layers of data to inform location investment decisions.
Yeah, that understanding missed opportunities is key. And I think I also mentioned it earlier on in some of that gap analysis. Essentially, are people visiting your store and then going on to another location to grab a coffee or some other element? So it's kind of understanding that onward journey, should we say, in respect to that. What is your competitor doing ultimately that we can't? And I guess Wejo's data then helps give you that inferment as well. I guess a recent example of some of our work has been where we've provided a fuel station provider, let's say, the understanding of how many vehicles pass by, how many vehicles convert to your location, and how many drive on to another location. So a few filters that Wejo can do to our data to provide that kind of analysis, and then work on the kind of shall we say, the conversion rate. And you can look at that by hour of day of week, etc., to understand if a promotion that you're running is making a difference from one point in time to another.
Yeah, and I think also really key, as we've said, is spotting missed opportunities in the market. So is there an underserved area on the way to an attraction, for example, where your customers are already travelling? Or is there an oversaturation of similar stores on the same route? Or another example, bad congestion nearby that might affect footfall or parking availability. So knowing the numbers of visitors there are to any point of interest can really help inform site selection.
Got it. Thank you. So now I want to share some data for our audience just to put the importance of store-by-store performance in perspective. At large, consumers returned to in-store shopping in 2022, according to the National Retail Federation, and retailers rose to the demand by opening new locations. Major U.S. headquartered retailers announced plans to open roughly 7,860 stores for all of 2022. So with more stores comes more competition for retailers. And before we dig into the audience Q&A, what are your recommendations for retailers facing heightened competition, especially from the rising number of digital native retailers opening new stores? Jim?
Yeah, I guess it's don't be afraid of adopting newer technology or seeking newer data sources. I guess it's that piece there where you can find additional complementary data sets to help you in your study, essentially, of your locations or the site you may select. The market for connected vehicles and electric vehicles within that is growing quickly, and therefore, off the back of it, the opportunity continues to increase. So, according to the Fortune Business Insights, the US EV electric market is projected to grow from 28 billion in 2021 to 137 billion by 2028. So this is continuing to grow in terms of a potential data set to provide insights, and this can help you in your smart mobility insights as a new layer of data.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And ultimately, smart mobility data provides insights on customer behavior trends and patterns that you just can't get anywhere else. So retailers should want to use tools that sharpen their competitive edge, and that's exactly what the data does.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. So I would like to shift to some questions from our audience today. And just to jump right in, our first one here asks, can retailers use Wejo to measure the impact of out-of-home promotion?
Yeah, absolutely. So by using smart mobility data to run before and after analysis, retailers can see the effect of an out-of-home or even an in-store promotion to measure visitors' numbers. We can see changes to catchment areas and overall increases in dwell time. So you'd be able to measure how many more customers came to the store, how much further they were willing to travel for the promotion, and if they stayed in the store longer than usual.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question asks, what sets smart mobility data apart from GPS or cell phone data?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to that one. So I guess for Wejo data, what we provide, we've touched on this throughout the presentation today, ultimately, that it provides more information about the vehicle, the mode of transport past what a cell phone can do. So understanding the, as we say, the vehicle type, whether it is a compact, SUV, etc., providing information on the powertrain. Once again, that's how we can differentiate the EVs from the ICE vehicles, essentially within the data set. So there's some top line ways, and this all connects to understanding more about your customer, the customer profile, or the general customers that visit your area of interest through that demographic information enrichment.
Excellent. Thank you. Got some great questions coming in. Let's take one more. Where do Weejo's smart mobility data come from?
So Weejo partners with a number of car manufacturers across the US and Europe to gather our data and insights. The data is incredibly granular and dates back as far as 2019 in certain locations. So it's a really vast data set with huge potential in the retail market.
Yeah, and I guess to expand on that, so ultimately where Weejo sits in the process, essentially. So we're bringing together various different data sources from very different OEM partners, essentially, and bringing that into a streamlined data set through our products and services onto our customers. And this also then comes into sort of, I guess, what level of our partner's ability is. So it could be that you receive a data delivery all the way down to tell me insights around my particular area of interest. And again, Weejo is there to support in that, essentially. So it's how you get this vast data set down into something that's manageable and gets to your answer, essentially. That's where we work.
Fantastic. All right. That is all the time that we have today. If you have any other questions, you can find out more about Weejo at weejo.com and contact them over there. You can also find Joe Birch and Jim Eaton on LinkedIn if you have other specific follow-up questions. I'd like to thank our speakers, Jim Eaton and Joe Birch, for a great discussion today. We appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise with us. I'd also like to thank our audience for joining us today. This webinar will be available on demand. You will soon receive an email with a link so that you can rewatch or share with your colleagues. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.